Thank you. Good morning, councillors, staff and members of the gallery, and welcome to our ordinary council meeting for February 2025. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and throughout the Southern Downs region, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Today we have the Reverend Peter Evans joining us for our prayer.
Thank you once again for the privilege it is, part of the Stanthorpe Christian Ministers Association to do this for you. Let's pray. Paul writes in his letter to Timothy chapter 2. He urges us first of all to make petitions, to pray, to intercede and give thanks for all people, for kings and for all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. To do this is good and pleases you, Lord, for you want all people to be saved and to come to a knowledge of truth. And so, Lord, I pray for our local council at the start of this meeting. Help them in their decision making. Give them a heart to seek the good for our whole community. Grant them wisdom and the courage to make hard decisions. May the diversity and different values they hold dear lead to creative solutions. May disagreement be respectful and not personal. May they be pure in heart and peacemakers as they serve us, the community here on the Granite Belt. I ask your blessing upon their families and friends, those who encourage and support them in this task. Surround them with people of good intent, wise advisors, and those who know them well enough to gently rebuke and tell them truths as they need to hear, for we all need people like that in our lives. Lastly, I do pray for our new CEO. Be with Rachel on the steep learning curve of a new role in a new place. May her service here be rewarding to both her and this council, personally and professionally, as she too seeks the good of this community. For I pray this in the name of God, the mediator between God and humankind, Jesus Christ, who gave himself as a ransom for all people. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Peter. Moving on to, are there any condolences today?
Yep.
Yes, Councillor Wantling.
I would like to pay my condolences to Gary Very and family on the recent passing of Marie. Gary is a former Tenfield councillor and still heavily involved in issues that affect our border regions, and I know that this is a great loss to him. She will be sadly missed.
Thank you, Councillor Wantling. Moving on to reading and confirmation of minutes, we have a recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on Wednesday, 22 January 2025 be adopted. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Windle, seconder. Councillor McDonald, all in favour? Oh,
Just
sorry.
a question.
Yes, one.
Yeah, sorry.
One question before we go to the vote.
Just in 8.2, it's that motion. I've noticed it's completed.
Sorry, Councillor Wantling, I think you're on item 5 rather than item 4. Is that right?
Actions of minutes?
Actions, yeah, we're on the minutes.
Sorry.
Yes, okay, so we'll go to a vote on the minutes, all in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Now moving on to item 5, actions from council meetings. We have a recommendation that council receive the report and note the contents. Do I have a mover? Councillor Dean, and a seconder, Councillor Haslett, thank you. Now, Councillor Wantling, back to you.
Yeah, just at 8.2 again, it's completed, but I just noticed agreement provided to councillors, but it's not the complete resolution of what the motion was.
That is correct, actually, Councillor Wantling, because you had asked for not just the agreement, but a report.
Yeah, on the safety in the door and, yep.
Yes, we'll take that one
Yep.
back into actions, and the staff can take that on for a report. Thank you, Councillor Wantling. Anything else on item 5? Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 6, declarations of conflicts of interest. Do we have any declarations today? Councillor Haslett. 15.1. 15.1. Councillor Windle.
14.5.
12.1, if there's any discussion on sale yards, but
I'll be leaving the room.
Yes.
15.1, Madam.
15.1 for councillor Richters. Anything else? No. Okay, so we'll start at item 12.1 with councillor Bartley.
Yes, there is a question regarding sale yards in 12.1. If that question is addressed at this meeting, I'll leave the room.
Okay, thank you, councillor Bartley. Item 14.5, councillor Windle.
Thanks, Mayor Melissa. It's a declarable conflict of interest. I live across the road from the water treatment plant, so I feel that there could be a conflict there. But I would like to ask my fellow councillors if I can stay in the room and participate in any discussion and also the vote.
Okay, do we have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, and a seconder, councillor McDonald. All those in favour? That's everyone except councillor Windle.
Thank you.
Councillor Haslett, item 15.1.
Also a declarable conflict of interest. In July of last year, I was contacted by the media as the then portfolio holder for events, and I was asked to comment on the future of the Rabbit's Eat Lettuce Festival in the region. I did make comments to that journalist that I looked favourably upon festivals and events providing that they met council requirements and followed approved processes. I do believe I can make an unbiased decision in the matter of 15.1, and I ask that I be allowed to stay in the room and vote on it.
Thank you, councillor Haslett. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Windle, and a seconder, councillor Dean. Those who don't have a conflict on 15.1 and who are happy to vote for councillor Haslett to stay in the room, that is everyone except councillors Richters and Haslett. And to councillor Richters.
Madam Mayor, my election material that was distributed during the election campaign stated that I supported festivals in the region. I attended the Rabbit's Eat Lettuce 2024 festival as an observer. I've written a media statement regarding pill testing, which did occur at the 2024 Rabbit's Eat Lettuce festival. I met with the Rabbit's Eat Lettuce director in December 2024 where we discussed pill testing, and then I've had a phone conversation with the director of Rabbit's Eat Lettuce confirming they've seen the report and the council officer's report that's been presented today. I think in accordance with all of my actions, I think that whilst I am supportive of festivals in the region as a election point of view, every application has to be assessed on its merits and whether or not it stands up against the planning scheme and the Planning Act. And I think that my due diligence in thoroughly going through the Act and our planning scheme means that I can make an opinion based on facts, not emotion or opinion. And so I would like to stay in the room and contribute to the discussion and debate and vote.
Thank you, councillor Richters. Can I just ask in relation to the media statements that you have made, do you believe that the public would find that those media statements led to a perception of bias?
I don't think so, Madam Mayor. The media statement was purely about pill testing, and yes, pill testing did occur at last year's Rabbit's Eat Lettuce Festival, but it's also occurred at Schoolies last year. It also occurred at set up a permanent pill testing clinic in Brisbane. So my media statement was about pill testing in Queensland, not about a music festival.
Okay. And councillor Richters, when you attended the event last year as an observer, was that at your own cost or at the invitation and cost of the applicants?
I wasn't asked to pay to attend the event. I wasn't a patron of the event. I attended for like an hour to observe the event.
Thank you. Okay, and you are asking to stay in the room and vote?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, do I have a mover for that? Councillor Haslett, and a seconder? Councillor Windle. All those... Councillor Haslett.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, yes,
conflict
you
on
can.
that one.
You're right.
Apologies, I can't.
Yes.
Sorry.
So, councillor Windle, are you happy to be the mover in that case and a seconder? Councillor Dean, thank you. All those in favour? Councillor Haslett, Dean. Councillor Haslett,
Of course I can't.
Councillor Dean, Councillor Windle and Councillor Pigeon in favour. And those against, Councillors Wantling, Bartley, McDonald and Hamilton. So that is lost. Leave the room. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on. The mayoral minute, there is none today. We have no notices of motion. We have no correspondence. We have no petitions or joint letters. But we do have a portfolio report from Councillor RICHTERS on secure communities, and we have a recommendation that Council's secure communities portfolio. Oh, sorry.
It's come to my attention that I also have a conflict with 13.1.
Oh,
Sale yards is also mentioned there. It's both my conflicts regarding sale yards. The question comes out of 13.1, but it's mentioned in 12.1. So it's a little bit involved.
Okay, I think we can, we didn't go to a vote on that one. We'll just note
I'll
that
be,
both
I'll be
items
leaving the room.
in that. Okay. A recommendation that Council Secure Communities Portfolio Report be received. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Dean, and a seconder? Councillor Haslett, thank you. Over to Councillor RICHTERS.
Madam Mayor, I'd say the report is read. There's some exciting things happening in the planning space, and I hope that the community can have a good read of that report and see those things happening.
Thank you, Councillor RICHTERS. It was a very thorough report, and it did cover a lot of very good work that's been done. Anything else on that one? Okay, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 12.1, we have a recommendation that Council receive and note the Chief Executive Officer's status report. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Pigeon, and a seconder? Councillor Haslett, thank you. Any comments or questions on that, councillors? No, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 13.1, we have a recommendation that Council receive and note the financial performance report as at 31 January 2025. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wantling, thank you, and a seconder? Councillor Dean, thank you. Any comments or questions on that one, councillors? Councillor Wantling?
Through you, Mayor, is Govinda here?
Yes.
Sorry.
But if you put the question to me, and then yes, I'll direct it to the staff.
Okay.
Yep.
Capital grants revenue is $1 million over budget. Are these grants secured or are they conditional on project completion?
I'll direct that actually to, I think, the executive.
Govinda.
They are committed. Generally, the funding allocation comes through based on completion of project milestones. So as we complete the projects, we make some money. So this time also the funds are secured, but this is a matter of delivering the remaining components of the project same as
Just one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Capital works expenditure is 20.6 million. Is spent out of the 66.1 million budget. With another 6.6 million committed, is there a risk of under delivery of capital projects by the year's end?
I'll direct that one actually to the General Manager Infrastructure actually.
Through you, Mayor, and thanks for the question, Council. It's a really good one. If Council would like to turn to the graph, I don't have a page, actually no, it's on page 29, and it actually shows you the total capital expenditure, both the actual and commitment and also the actual cumulative spend versus our budget line. I think the good news for all of the council is that over the last 5 months, the red line has been on top of the blue line and the green line. So for the first time after the budget review, we've now got both our actual spend and also our commitments above the red budget line. So that's a really good achievement for the entire team. Now, I would like it more above the red line, because you can see there's a steep climb in the remaining months. And I think I've acknowledged that for over the last 5 months as well. But I think for the team's perspective, I think we have to celebrate the small wins as well, that we're actually ahead of the curve. Does that mean that we don't have a long road to go? We do. But I think, as I've described before, we've got a number of tools now in place that we've incorporated through our new CEO in terms of our new capital PCG and the way we manage and monitor this. So we're going to have a lot more transparency about where projects are and what we need to do with them. There's an enormous amount of work happening behind the scenes to actually hit that red line. Now, whether we achieve all of it is still probably a little bit difficult to say, because remember, after the first quarter we had 4% spend. So I'm really happy with the progress. Have we got a lot of work to do? Yes. And the team are very committed to do the best they can to actually achieve as much spend as we can for this year, and also set us up for success for the following year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I get one?
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
That's all right.
Ask away.
Right. Looking at the financial report, looking cash flow, can you clarify what net purchases of invested securities the 19 million relates to, please?
Yes, I think this is, will we direct that to
Okay,
Vicky?
council, that relates to investments that council makes with other commercial banks. Generally what we do is when we invest money out, there is the line is very good.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watling. Anything else, councillors? Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 13.2, we have a recommendation that council receive and note the contents of the operational plan quarterly review, October 24 to December 24. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Pidgeon, and a seconder, Councillor Haslett, thank you. Any comments or questions on that item? Is it going to be sale yards? Or?
No, it's not
Okay.
sale yards. It's just down on so 13.2 objective 1.3.2 on the operational plan. I don't know if everyone is aware, numbers are dropping in sports throughout the Southern Downs. This objective is vital. As we all know, sports is important in so many ways. I believe this objective should be highly prioritised.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Watling. We'll get staff to note that, and in fact, yes, we do need to check when that is coming back to council. Go.
1.3.3, objective, can I give congratulations to staff and Penny to host the Club IQ. We had fantastic feedback on that, and a lot of people and a lot of clubs in the area actually got help.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've got one more. So, 3.3.3, objective in regards to refreshing the Southern Downs and Granite Belt brand. Will there be community consultation on this discussion, as we know how it affects our local tourism?
The staff will take that one on notice, Councillor Watling. Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Mayor, on action 2.2 and 2.21, I'd just like to congratulate our staff in regards to undertaking the investigation for the gravel pits and looking at this initiative as a cost-saving exercise. I think that that's a fantastic way to go. So I certainly applaud the staff, rather than obviously, well, it's good we can use local suppliers where we need to. However, if we can resource things ourselves, that's great. Well done.
Councillor McDonald, that would be the case, but I think we're slightly ahead of things because they don't know if it would be a cost saving yet or not. But when they finish their investigations, we will know whether that is the case.
My apologies, Madam Mayor.
Anyone else? No, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 13.3, we have the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee and a recommendation that Council receive and note the minutes from the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting held on 23 January 2025. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Dean, thank you, and a second. Councillor Haslett, thank you. Any comments or questions on those? All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 13.4. we have a recommendation that council pursuant to section 99(1) of the Land Act 1994 offer no objection to the application for a permanent road closure over part of the road reserve adjacent to lot 1 on SP 165073, so long as the two lots are amalgamated. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Hassler, thank you. And a seconder? And a seconder? Councillor Dean, thank you. Do we have any comments or questions on that one? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Mayor, just in regards to the actual, I mean, I've no issue with the application whatsoever. However, when you look at the aerial view, am I right in seeing that it's already been built on? Is that correct? So before this has been approved, that there is a building within that easement?
I think,
Almost
Do
a
we
cart
have,
before the horse.
who is the, hello, Belinda.
Hello,
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to take that one on notice and come back to the councillors.
It could be a case of permanent versus temporary dwellings. So I think if you have a shed, it's not counted the same as a house.
Right, so it's already in the area.
It might be, it's just where that line actually is.
Sometimes the aerial things might.
The general manager was just saying sometimes the aerial view doesn't exactly line up, so we'll get the staff to check
Thanks,
that
Mayor.
and come back on that. I don't think that would affect the vote today, do you?
No, I don't consider that it does, but I mean, there is concerns if people are actually preempting a council decision and building on an easement prior to it actually being approved. So for me, that does raise issues, yes. Obviously, I like to see people adhering to rules and regulations, not stepping outside of that, and then coming afterwards and then requesting that it be incorporated. One has to question why that occurred and how that occurred.
Yeah, staff will take that one on notice.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, all those in favour of the recommendation? That's unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 13.5. We have a recommendation that council approve the allocation of $13,000 to the Warwick Motocross Club for materials to assist the club construct an external safety fence to meet safety and security requirements for events held at their facility located in Morgan Park. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Wantling, and a seconder, Councillor Dean. Does anyone want to speak to the motion, Councillor Wantling?
I've got to take my hat off to these guys. They stepped up 6 months ago and they come in and bought their own machinery and they cleaned that whole place up. All the track, the whole lot, and then a big storm about a month ago come through and washed a lot of that away, so they had to go back in again and redo all that. So the fence not only helps the safety of motocross but also many users of Morgan Park. The event that they're staging in June, as I'm aware, it'll bring in about 3,000 to 5,000 attendees over the 2 days. And it'll just bring a big economic value to our area. So I think it's well worth giving to them.
Thank you, Councillor Wantling. Does anyone want to speak against the motion? Any more for the motion? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
I would endorse this request as it not only assists in health and safety, it also aligns with our corporate plan for happy and healthy communities, particularly for the youth that are involved in motorsports and outdoor activities.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Does anyone else want to speak to that motion? Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 14.1, we have a recommendation that council delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the negotiation and achievement of the transfer of the operation of the electric vehicle charger located as defined in the executed agreement. Delegate to the Chief Executive Officer in the event the transfer is not successful to seek alternate providers for the site. Commence a public engagement for the cessation of the free electric vehicle charge service at the Acacia Avenue site. And delegate to the Chief Executive Officer in the event no agreements with providers can be made within 6 months, the site be closed. I actually think we need to tidy up the wording of the recommendation a little. Is everyone okay if we do that before we move and second it? It doesn't quite make sense. So in item 1, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer, that should be to negotiate and achieve the transfer.
Sorry, it's just
Achieve the transfer of the operation of the electric vehicle charger. If we could, that's okay, Marion, I can keep going. Located at Acacia Avenue and as defined. At Acacia Avenue. And as defined. And then in item 4, if we can change that to if no agreements with providers can be made within 6 months, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer to, I think it's cease operation, rather than, we wouldn't be closing the Acacia Street car park, we would just be ceasing operation of the charger. Is that right, or which manager?
Thank you, ma'am. I say, no, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. So, yes. Charger. Well, it is, because it makes no sense. In effect, I think I am moving an amended motion, so I will move that motion as amended if I have a seconder. Councillor Windle, thank you. Okay. So we have an amended motion, as you can see on the screen, which has been moved and seconded. Does anyone want to speak to the motion or have questions?
Just if I could add that if this could happen as soon as possible, because currently there's no electrical vehicle charger at all available in Warwick, so it is a problem for people travelling with electric vehicles at the moment. So I think we need a solution as quickly as we can.
Yeah, you can take that on notice.
I agree with Mr. Councillor Haslett, because there's a lot of negative feedback coming from this, and I think that we need to try to address it as soon as possible, and it is a necessity to have this in our region, in Warwick, so I'd like to see the problem overcome fairly quickly.
Yeah, I will say to councillors that we did put in the latest round of Eureka grants for additional charges in Warwick. We were not successful, but there is another round coming up which we will ask staff to continue to submit for. Councillor Richters, did you have?
Madam Mayor, I move an amendment to omit item number 4.
Do I have a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Bartley. So we are now talking about an amended motion just with the first 3 items.
Provided my amendment passes.
Yeah. Yep, okay.
Can I just ask a question on that? Can we have a reason as to why you want to omit that? I think I understand it,
I
but
don't
just.
think the site should be closed at all, and I definitely don't want to delegate to the CEO of that authority.
Thank you.
Okay, voting on the current amendment motion, which is for the recommendation just with items 1 to 3. All in favour? Or do you want to?
Point of order, Madam Mayor. According to the meeting procedure policy, we have to vote on the amendment first.
Yes.
And then you vote on the full motion. So
Okay.
we've got to approve the amendment first.
So voting on the amendment
As of councillor Richter's
of
amendment.
councillor Richter's, the current one that's on the table.
To move on.
Yeah, to remove item 4.
Okay.
Just a second, so does anyone else want to speak for or against that item?
Just to confirm what Councillor Richter's saying, I think the current location is an ideal location and needs to be retained. I think the public are used to knowing where it is. It's not a busy area of town and it's easily accessed. So I think you won't find a better location for a charging site actually.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually very much agree with that and I hope that it stays there, absolutely. But I think we're doing ourselves a lot more harm by having a charger there covered with a plastic thing and not operational than we would if it was removed. But I agree it's the ideal spot, but if we can't find someone else to take it over, I think it's doing us harm to leave it there as it is.
Madam Mayor, I think in the event that the CEO is not able to find an agreement, then it needs to come back to us for us to make a decision about what the future is then.
Yes, look, I would say that in speaking against this, we don't know that this is the ideal site because the ideal site will depend on a number of items, including the electricity supply. It is likely when they go out looking to achieve a transfer to a new operator, that a new operator will say, we actually can't locate it there for the same reasons that the current one has had problems at. That's just a possibility. I believe, while it is important, an EV charger to me is a completely operational matter, and I think provided that there will be a EV charger, the staff are more than capable of dealing with the terms of that. It is, to me, a minor matter. And I don't think personally that looking at the costs, I don't think that this is something that ratepayers should be paying for in terms of operation. We need to find a third-party provider and not have these costs coming onto council when UQ pull out of the site. That's my main focus in this, and if that requires ceasing operations at the site, which is why I was suggesting ceasing operations rather than closing the site, but I don't think we want to be in a position where council are taking on costs.
I agree with what you're saying. I think it's important that we get the message out there that this is not council's fault, because that is where all the negativity is being directed at the moment. Council is being completely blamed for this, where it's not our asset. So we didn't put it there, we allowed them to put it there, but we didn't actually pay for it and put it there. It is not a council asset. So we need to get that message out to people that this is not council's fault, and we are trying everything we can to try and overcome the issue, but it's going to take a provider to fulfil that.
Madam Mayor, the closure of that site would be absolutely to the detriment of our community.
Are you doing your right of reply now, Councillor Richters? I just haven't checked that everyone else has finished speaking. No, okay, yes.
The comments over the weekend that I've seen and received about that charger means that it is a critical piece of infrastructure in our community, and having an option in this resolution that allows for the CEO to close that site without having any further conversation with us is not what the community have put us here for. The community have put us here to be able to make decisions that are in the best interest of the community, not to delegate to the CEO to close critical infrastructure that is critically important for our weekend visiting tourism market. So that's why I will be supporting removing the ability for the site to be closed.
Going to the vote on that amendment. All in favour? Councillors Richters, Wantling, Bartley, Windle and Pigeon, and against Dean, Haslett, McDonald and Hamilton. So the amendment is carried to remove item 4, and then we go back to the motion as it now stands with the 3 items. Does anyone want to speak for or against the motion, or have we now actually spoken about everything we need to speak about? Okay. On the motion itself, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 14.2, we have a recommendation that council, following tender assessment, enter into a contract with GHD Pty Ltd for the dam safety review, Connolly Dam, for an amount of $297,645.50 exclusive of GST, and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into any variations to the contract terms as deemed necessary for the duration of the contract. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Haslett, and a seconder, Councillor Pigeon, thank you. Does anyone want to speak for the motion? Anyone want to speak against the motion? All in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 14.3, we have a recommendation that council, following the tender assessment, enter into a contract with the trustee for Comlec Plumbing Unit Trust for the supply of plumbing crews for capital operational and maintenance works in the Southern Downs region for the daily amount of $11,628.76 exclusive of GST, estimated to be $965,187.16 excluding GST to 30 June 2025, and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into any variations to the contract terms as deemed necessary for the duration of the contract, and authorise a 6-month extension to the contract at the same rates if required. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Pigeon, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Haslett. Does anyone want to speak for the motion or against? Okay, all in favour? That's everyone except Councillor Richters, and against Councillor Richters. We have item 14.4, a recommendation that council approve the request from PIKEDALE Cluster Fence Association and allocate funding of $20,000 in the Q3 budget review for financial year 2025-26, budget allocation of capital funds of $20,000 for installation by council. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Pigeon, and a seconder, Councillor McDonald. Thank you. Do you want to speak to the motion, Councillor Pigeon?
Yes, please. I'd just like to thank the operational team for coming to a conclusion with PIKEDALE Cluster Association there. I understand the cost that goes into these fencing projects, so it is so important in protecting the livestock and being able to work with those growers and working with council. We've come to a great outcome here, so thank you very much.
Yes, Mayor. Obviously, being a farmer, I certainly understand the needs of the farmers within this region, and I think this is a fantastic outcome. I, along with many other farmers, have had sheep attacked over the last 6 and 12 months, losing them, and it's very difficult at the moment if you do not have cluster fencing to keep those dogs out, in particular with the wildfires that we've had. So I certainly endorse this recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak for the motion, Councillor Richters?
Mayor, the report shows that there's been no external consultation. However, I know, because I've had a conversation with PIKEDALE and Cluster Fence Association, that they were negotiated with during this process. So why weren't they included in the external consultation?
Through you, Mayor. I think this is just an omission, councillor, so thanks for bringing it up. I think the text in the background of the report talks about the consultation and the collaboration to get to this point. So it probably should have just been mentioned in the external consultation. They were obviously the group that we consulted with, and we had extensive meetings with them.
Thank you, General Manager. And I would like to also support the motion and what Councillor Pigeon has said. I know this has been a very long-running issue, and I think it's really good that Council has actually moved to finally come to a good conclusion that's supported by the association. So I'd like to thank the staff for doing that. Anyone else? Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 14.5, we have a recommendation that Council approve the final location of the planned 8 megalitre reservoir and water distribution centre as part of future upgrades of the Warwick treatment plant on the lot at 2628 Willi Street, Warwick. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Haslett, and a seconder. Councillor McDonald, thank you. Would you like to speak for the motion? Anyone? Councillor Bartley?
I have concerns that in this report it shows our proposed subdivision of the old Willi Street site. It also shows the subdivision of a park area known as the Triangle, commonly referred to in Warwick as the Triangle Park. It's got remnant vegetation in that park. It's been proved that it is natural vegetation too. It does show that I don't know, I've never put my hand up to support a subdivision there yet, but I assume this whole report is predicated on the fact that that will be subdivided, and it talked about the distances from the chlorine drums and what have you, and that's why we're relocating the reservoir. I can accept that. I think we might be putting the cart before the horse by maybe we should be approving as a council the subdivision before we go ahead with this project. You know, it's all there to look at in the report, but I've never put my hand up for a subdivision of that type.
I'd like to actually yes, take that to staff, Councillor Bartley, because I read it perhaps the other way round, where that anything else with the site would only happen having regard to this infrastructure on it, and that in fact may mean that nothing else comes to us, but if we could get some clarity from the staff on that.
And through you, Madam Mayor, I think the team acknowledged we wanted to try and disclose some of the potential concepts that were on the block. So it was only concepts, so it should have had the word concepts. It has been discussed at a number of CISs, both in November and earlier, and with the previous council, about some of the concepts that were on that site. I think from our perspective, the water team were very much focused on providing great quality water and the best and cheapest infrastructure. So, but we also wanted to be really open, for the fact is that by putting the water reservoir on there, it does preclude obviously any future subdivision on that thing. So we wanted to be really open about that and sort of be clear to the public. In relation to the balance site, it doesn't preclude any development. I think the team are working with planning about some other ideas that will be brought back to council in the future. This report really concentrates on where is the best site for the water infrastructure and what's the cheapest and best alternative. But the plan was really in there so that we would actually be really open with the public about by moving the reservoir. We didn't want it to say, here's where the reservoir is going, no comment, and then later someone says, well, you should have really told us there were some other concepts. And they were only concepts, never approved, councillor, you're correct. But we also wanted to be really clear and open in this process.
Yes, Councillor Richters, is it a question or speaking for or against the motion?
Bit of both.
Okay.
So, first of all, my understanding is that the triangle that Councillor Bartley is talking about is actually not park, and it is zoned as residential. Can I have confirmation of that? So I think it does a disservice by us continuing to call it a park when it's not a park. park. I will not be supporting this motion. We don't do public consultation by making a decision here and then trying to go and justify it after the case. We talk to the community before we make a decision. I don't think that the community had in mind that when we relocated or got rid of the old Rosenthal Shire Council depot shed and relocated Rose City FM and got rid of the old Rosenthal Shire Council office, that we were going to build a tank there. So I think that more community consultation needs to happen. I would support a motion to lay this on the table for us to go away and actually do the due diligence and consultation. Otherwise, I won't be supporting it.
So that's a procedural motion to lay it on the table.
I'm not necessarily moving that, but if one was moved, I would support that. That's what I was indicating.
So at the moment, Councillor Richters has spoken against. Any more? Councillor Bartley, you've actually spoken unless you have a question.
It's a question, can we have this separated to just approve the infrastructure without approving those concepts? Because by voting for this, basically you're in favour of those concepts.
Through you, Mayor, our view is it's only about the water tank location.
Yeah.
And the concepts are a bit of a mislead, but
I can accept the water reservoir where it's going. I think it's ideal. I think it's perfect because it's an old site, possibly contaminated in some respects.
it is.
It is a contaminated site. It's an ideal site for where we're putting this piece of infrastructure. Just leave the rest of it, the concept of what we're doing with other stuff, right out of it.
Yes, Councillor
Muddy
Bartley.
the waters.
I think the recommendation is very clear that all we are approving is the location of the reservoir and water distribution centre. So the recommendation is very clear, in my view, and I agree with you, it should not go further than that, because that is all that is in front of us today. Does anyone else want to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Windle?
Well, I'm not speaking either way. I do have some concerns, and as I said, I live across the road. I'm not up that end where the tank is proposed to go. I'm further down the road, but still across the road from the pond area. But I've moved there since we cleared all that space. So prior to me moving to the area, I was on council when we moved the men's shed and the Woodcrafters and Rosenthal, the Rose City FM. And the idea of that was because that land was earmarked as residential land for the future development for housing. So that was the idea at the time. Whether it's ever been put into place or not is, still to be sorted. But that was the idea at the time, and that was what the public understood that was going to happen. So that's why I have concerns about the tank going in there.
I will speak for the motion. I actually think that the water infrastructure in both Warwick and Stanthorpe is well past the infrastructure cliff. We have enormous amounts of spending facing this council in this term to bring our water infrastructure assets up to spec and to service the growing populations in both of those towns. To me, doing that in a way that is the least costly is something that I think we need to keep in mind for ratepayers, because we are going to have to go looking for money for these infrastructure upgrades where we can find it, and there's no certainty that we will find any funding, and we will be borrowing for those upgrades. So for me, I think it's incredibly important when we have an opportunity to save some money in upgrading our water assets that we take that opportunity. Anyone else want to speak on that one? Okay, if we go to a vote on the recommendation, all those in favour? Does everyone except Councillor Richters, and those against? Councillor Richters, thank you. Okay.
Vision on that, yeah.
Pardon? Yeah. Okay, moving on to item 15.1. We'll note that Councillor Richters is going to leave the room. Okay. Item 15.1, we have a recommendation that the application for material change of use for the purpose of an undefined use, music and art festival with associated camping areas up to 12 days per year and up to 10,000 people in a day on land at 396 KEOGHS Road and HOPGOODS Road, Elbow Valley, described as Lot 1000 SP 268215 and lots 0 to 22 SP 268215 be approved subject to conditions. Do I have a mover for that motion? Councillor Haslett and seconded Councillor Dean. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Haslett, would you like to speak for the motion?
Yes, thank you. There's obviously been a lot of discussion around this matter amongst ourselves as councillors and the community. As a councillor, it's my role is not to delve into the operational details of applications like this. I see it as the responsibility of our staff, and I do have complete confidence in their thoroughness and their diligence. The recommendations presented at this meeting come from people who possess far greater expertise than I do when it comes to operational intricacies of matters like this. So when the staff recommend approval with conditions, I do largely trust that their assessments are sound and well considered. My role is to look at each proposal from a broader strategic perspective, considering its impact on the entire Southern Downs region. My portfolio covers arts and culture, and I've invested a significant amount of time in studying how we can enhance this sector in our community. One of the key concepts that I often encounter in my research is a thing called placemaking. And placemaking highlights the importance of arts and culture and creativity, and it underscores the critical role of creative industries, including events, in the social and economic well-being of our communities. I firmly believe that the most effective way to foster a sense of place through arts and culture is by establishing dedicated event precincts. Holding events in random locations introduces too many risks, unknowns and uncontrolled variables. We can use as an example an event over the New Year period that this council decided against approving in an ad hoc venue and instead chose a dedicated event precinct. Now, while I acknowledge that that wasn't a perfect decision and there were many lessons learned from that, I think that decision still significantly reduced the risks compared to what would have been the case in the original proposed site. From that experience, I think we've learned, and we will take that knowledge and grow and improve our future events going forward. This current application shows that the applicant has learned from past events and is making great efforts, I think, to improve. Our council staff have clearly demonstrated that they've carefully considered the issues that arose previously. This recommendation includes no fewer than 9 specific event management plans for each and every proposed event, addressing key concerns such as traffic, noise and bushfire management and many more. By approving this application, we would be creating a space where risk management improves with each event that is held. And I think that past concerns and problems can be addressed by doing this and are being addressed. It's also important to note that while the Rabbits Eat Lettuce Festival is a dance music festival, this approval opens the door to a variety of other events in the creative space. These could include a variety of things, including food and wine celebrations, country, folk or classical music concerts, school or club jamborees, arts festivals, healing retreats or health festivals. I actually feel a sense of excitement just thinking about the possibilities of what could come from the approval of this application. It is for these reasons that I will be voting in favour of making Cheraba a destination for unique and creative events, contributing to the growth and vibrancy of the Southern Downs.
Thank you, Councillor Haslett. I'm going to speak against the motion. This decision, in my view, should not be one that reflects my personal opinion, as I am here to represent the community. While acknowledging that there are many different communities in the Southern Downs, In seeking a unified vision and values to assess this application, I have gone back to plans and strategies that have been developed with long community consultation and adopted by this council. The Southern Downs Community Plan 2030 gives a unified regional vision for the Southern Downs. When asked, what do you love about the Southern Downs region, the community responded overwhelmingly that it was the climate, clean air, natural environment and distinct seasons. And other highly rated responses included the lifestyle and a sense of safety and community fostered by being in a small regional centre or township. As to tourism, the community plan states that the Southern Downs will offer outstanding tourism experiences which will utilise the unspoiled natural assets, and ecotourism will feature strongly. Council's events strategy of 2021 to 26 states that the region should continue to support, grow and attract events that build on our unique selling points to increase the region's competitive advantage into the future. Those unique selling points include our agricultural sector, our equestrian sector, our unique natural environment and our country, culture and lifestyle. It also states that the region is home to hallmark events of national significance with a year-round calendar of sustainable events that increase overnight visitor expenditure, providing strong economic impact and return on investment for the community. In my view, the events foreshadowed by this application do not fit with that events strategy or the aspirations in it. The aim of Shaping Southern Downs, another body of work with community consultation, was to create a great future for a bigger Southern Downs by defining a clear vision for our region. The strengths of the Southern Downs included rural and agricultural land, a strong country character and a rural lifestyle. Its vision in the future was that the region would protect the country lifestyle and rural and semi-rural character, recognising the importance of rural landscapes to sustain future livability and economic opportunities, and that the character of rural communities must be retained to provide a distinctive attraction and a competitive advantage for the Southern Downs region. I would note that on my analysis, only 8 of the 48 submissions in support of the application were from ratepayers of the Southern Downs. I would also note that the submissions did not, in my view, show a broad backing from our local business community. Turning to the planning scheme, in terms of the strategic framework 3.3.1, in my view, the application does not contribute to the scenic amenity values and in fact compromises the rural nature, the scenic amenity and the cultural identity values of the area. I think the argument that it is only for 12 days a year does not hold water for me. In those 12 days, the strategic outcome is not met. Under item 3.4.4.11, where new development must be designed to minimise impacts, I do not think that this application suitably mitigates the noise impact in a way that is consistent with the rural zone. In particular, I think audible noise between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. is not consistent with the rural zone. 3.6.2.15, I do not consider that the proposed application minimises the potential for conflict with rural and other land uses to an acceptable degree. 3.6.2.23 and 5, I consider that the application may impact negatively on the rural character, social cohesion and scenic amenity of the area. I do not think that the development is complementary and compatible with the agricultural land use. I am of the view that the use would affect existing natural and scenic values and would conflict with the prevailing character of the surrounding area. Specifically in terms of acceptable outcome 3.1 and performance outcome 3 in relation to bushfire risk, I believe it is possible to site the use solely on locations in the site which have the lowest hazard on the bushfire overlay. This has not been done in the siting, so in my view, acceptable outcome 3.1 has not been met. And in my view, having 10,000 people camping in a site of high bushfire risk compromises the safety of attendees, the local rural fire service, who are volunteers and neighbours, the single access and egress itself within the bushfire hazard area when trying to evacuate 10,000 people would make it impossible to meet the performance outcome. In my view, this council should aim for decisions that reflect the values and vision of our community as reflected in the community plan and Shaping Southern Downs. As to tourism, I think the application does not align with our strategic aims of focusing on high-value ecotourism, and in fact I believe that the application will negatively affect ecotourism in the area. I do not believe the event fits within our event strategy as it doesn't focus on one of our unique selling points and compromises our unique selling points of country, culture and lifestyle in an area of great natural beauty. Our tourists are escaping the noise and bustle of cities, and in my view they want a quiet rural getaway. I think that the application will adversely affect the rural lifestyle and character of the area and will unacceptably impact the amenity for residents. This does not mean that I do not support events generally, but I think it needs to be the right event in the right place. And I am also not prepared to approve a large event where the costs of compliance may fall upon ratepayers. I am not satisfied at the moment that our fees and charges adequately ensure that all of council's costs are paid by the applicant. However, in closing, I would like to address two items for those of my fellow councillors who might be considering approving this application. Firstly, in my view, audible noise between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. is not consistent with the rural zone, and I would strongly urge limiting audible noise during these hours. And secondly, I do not think it is appropriate that patrons use the unsealed roads of the area, and I would recommend blocking all unsealed roads to local traffic only for residents with roadblocks staffed at the cost of the applicant. Thank you. Do we have someone else speaking for the motion?
Well, if you want, I'll speak, but mine's still on the fence,
Okay.
so to speak. I was hoping, it's one of those very difficult decisions that we have to make, and I can see the benefits and I can see the things that go against this as well. And I agree with all Mowena's comments. She's made some very valid comments there, as you have, Mayor Melissa. So I'll just read out what I've got here, and I'll add-lib a couple more things as well. So I have read the report in full, and I do want to congratulate the staff on their detailed attention to all aspects of the application. I think they've covered everything very, very well. Public notification was carried out in accordance with the requirements of the DA rules. During that public notification period, several submissions were received. I've read all of those submissions and which have been lodged, and I want to thank all those people as well who've taken the time to put together their submission, including all those who support the application and all those who have objected and have raised concerns. I believe the staff have addressed all of the concerns and have proposed clear, concise conditions on this application. I don't recall any application that I've seen before me at any other time with that many conditions put on it, so well done to the staff. They're all detailed in the report, and if I encourage people, if you haven't already done so, I encourage anyone who's interested in the outcome of this application to take the time to read the report. I note that the application was required referral to the Department of Housing, Local Government Planning and Public Works, which relates to impacts on state transport infrastructure. The State Assessment Referral Agency issued a response with no requirements. The application also required referral to Ergon Energy as an advice agency, as the site is burdened by electricity easements. Ergon Energy issued their referral agency response with conditions which are noted in the report. If this event is approved, if this application is approved, each event will require event-specific management plans to demonstrate that adequate noise, lighting and waste management can be achieved. That's a must. A noise management plan and noise report must be prepared prior to each event. Traffic management plan is to be prepared for each event. Event traffic will be managed through that traffic management plan and must be submitted prior to each event. This is to ensure traffic to and from the site is appropriately managed to ensure conflict is minimised between adjoining properties, and will include that vehicular entrances must be managed so that vehicles are not queuing and blocking public roads. Now, I had a phone call from a person who lives out in that area after the last one, and she said to me that she was not able to get outside of her gateway because of the queuing. So I entirely agree that if this goes ahead, then all those unsealed roads should be for local traffic only. I think that that would be a big improvement if that can be included. An ecological assessment report has been included and found no endangered flora or fauna species except for koalas. Therefore, a fauna management plan will be conditioned to ensure koala habitats are not significantly impacted. I don't really like that word significantly there because I think that they shouldn't be impacted at all. So that's a little bit of a question mark there for me as well. I noted also that parts of the proposed use areas and access point is mapped within high and very high bushfire hazard areas. Recommendations of the bushfire management plan will be conditioned to ensure bushfire risks are appropriately mitigated. I initially had a lot of concerns relating to the bushfire hazard areas. However, I believe that all measures to mitigate risk will be put in place prior to any events which may be approved. The bushfire management plan recommends direct access to the on-site dam for emergency vehicles, and a 40,000 litre dedicated water supply for firefighting purposes will be provided for each event, and all access roads will have a cleared width of 6 metres for emergency vehicles. The operator also must consult QFES and ensure emergency procedures are in place as recommended in the bushfire management plan. And there's also triggers that are put in place so that if there's a warning out there, we have to act on that trigger and put the appropriate steps in place. So I believe that that will all be carried out. The applicant submitted an economic impact assessment report with the application, which includes details of the expected benefits there. That's a little bit iffy. Is it all going to be local benefits, or is it going to benefit people who come from outside to provide infrastructure or whatever's needed for that event? So there's the question marks there. I'm not sure exactly how much of an economic benefit there will be to our local community. That's not really clear. And as Mayor Melissa has pointed out, some of those submitters were not local people. Some of those were business people who are providing resources to run that event. As Moena has pointed out, there are 9 management plans that must be submitted prior to each event, and I think they are very, very important and will help to overcome some concerns that people might have. So once again, I just want to congratulate the staff for the details they have provided in the report to enable us to make a very informed decision.
Thank you. I think Councillor McDonald had her hand up at the beginning, so I'm going to go to Councillor McDonald next, and then I'll come back to this side.
Thank you, Mayor. I view this application through 2 different perspectives. One, as a councillor acting in the best interests of the community, and the other as the chair of the local Disaster Management Committee, considering both the community and the potential for a disaster in a high bushfire area. Hypothetically, if I took somewhere near the population of Warwick, over 10,000 people, placed them in 120 hectares of bushfire-prone land, then allow them to consume alcohol and added the very high possibility of illicit drug consumption, combine that situation with loud music, I further recognise that there was a large dam included on the site, and I was also privy to the knowledge that there was only one road in and one road out. Would I be doing my job to ensure the safety of these patrons and our community in a potential natural disaster? I suggest not. Having first-hand experience with out-of-control bushfires, in particular in Rogers Creek and the Greymere region in November 2024, I learnt some valuable lessons about major bushfires. This was a fire that we fought for 7 days and 7 nights, alongside of RFS units and aerial bombing units. We learnt that Mother Nature is very unpredictable. One lightning strike can be catastrophic. One wind direction change can endanger many structures and lives. And the build-up of fuel in a good season, such as this, is an absolute game changer. Never underestimate the impact of an on-site dozer, our RFS units and aerial water bombing if required. But try as we may to mitigate these concerns, they are very real. I congratulate you on your bushfire management plan, but I would like more certainty in the action plan. This includes who bears the financial burden to ensure all of these prescribed conditions are met. This is not a minor cost, and often these festivals are held over public holidays and require additional staff power and overtime rates. In November 24, Council refused a temporary event application for a music festival from an area near Junaby due to it being flood prone. It had far less patrons than what we are looking at here. The festival was moved to an alternative location with more suitable terrain. Similarly, this festival could be viable, but in a different location. I do recognise that the youth of our region who enjoy this type of entertainment should have an opportunity to attend such festivals. Finally, I look at the 65 submissions. This is important as it enlightens us on community sentiments. I note a large portion of those supporting submitters were from interstate and not local to our region. I particularly appreciated submitter number 44, who went into great detail to demonstrate the dangers of vehicles utilising Church Lane, an unformed road, as an access point to the festival. And I thank the farmer, Mr. Ron Creevy, who used his tractor up to 16 times for various carloads of festival participants being severely bogged during both the night and the day. He was the Good Samaritan. But should our farmers be subjected to this? I think not. In summary, I will not be supporting this recommendation for the safety and well-being of our community and the tourists associated with the concert. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Do I have another speaker for the motion?
I'm exactly like Cheryl, I'm still partial. However, I will read out what I have here. Sitting here listening to all the different perspectives and having read the planning report extremely carefully, this decision is not one that I have made lightly. I understand that our role as a councillor is making decisions, not just choosing the most convenient or familiar option. It's about weighing diverse, valued perspectives and ensuring that our choices are thoughtful and well-rounded. Every decision we make carries the potential to shape our future, and we must take the time to consider various viewpoints. However, to make these informed decisions, we need to take notice of the planning reports provided by our staff. They are providing us with the resources, data, time to make these informed, thoughtful decisions. It gives me confidence, as well as all of the conditions that are around the report, that the applicant will be required to submit event-specific management plans 120 days prior to each event for council endorsement. I do agree with Mayor Melissa in regards to the Bitumen Road. That condition needs to be further looked at if this is going to go ahead, and also that noise needs to be conditioned further. I would just like to thank the planning staff on the detailed report and all of the information that you have provided to us to make this decision today.
Thank you, Councillor Pigeon. Do I have another speaker against the motion?
Against.
Councillor Whatley? Yes.
This site is a very high bushfire intense area with only one access KEOGHS road for both evacuation and emergency response. In the case of a fire, attendees, up to 10,000 people would be trying to evacuate while emergency services would be attempting to enter, creating gridlock and extreme risk. The planning scheme bushfire hazard overlay 8.2.3, I think it is, seeks to minimise risk to people and property, and this proposal does not adequately demonstrate safe evacuation routes or on-site fire suppression measures. In regards to traffic, the proposal creates excessive traffic impacts on local roads and fails to ensure safe and efficient transport access. Previous events have resulted in unsafe driving congestion and patrons using alternative unsuitable roads. It also doesn't address long-term maintenance costs. Noise. The event's noise impact assessment admits previous events resulted in noise complaints from nearby residents. In Part 3 of the planning scheme, the health, wellbeing, amenity and safety of communities and individuals are protected from the impacts of air and noise emission. This event directly contradicts that because past noise complaints prove it affects residents' well-being. In regards to fauna, in the ecological assessment report confirms koala activity in the area. There is no specific measure on how the event will prevent habitat disturbance. Example, I couldn't find any report to do with buffers, etc. fencing. The plan doesn't detail how it will prevent litter and harming wildlife or control waste runoff into nearby waterways. This event poses some unacceptable risks to local wildlife, particularly protected species like koalas. Increased vehicle movements, temporary infrastructure and higher attendee numbers will likely disturb local wildlife and degrade native vegetation. I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, councillor Watling. Do we have another person speaking for the motion? Councillor Dean.
I'd first like to take a moment to thank the residents for their submissions and thank the staff for their detailed report. Today I'll be covering a few of the concerns that submitters have raised and how, in my opinion, these concerns have been managed. So the noise management plan. I've noted that one of the concerns with the REL festival is noise pollution. The event coordinators have taken these noise submissions from previous years into account for this year's festival to improve noise levels and stage locations to mitigate the impact on surrounding sensitive receptors. I would also like to add that the sound engineer is looking into sound systems with advanced noise cancelling technology. A comprehensive bushfire management plan has been conducted through a third-party company. An assessment of the festival site was conducted over several days. From this assessment, they have created a plan to mitigate bushfire risks such as hazard reduction and fuel load management, identifying hazardous materials, locating water access for firefighting purposes. This document also has emergency management procedures, including fire danger ratings, bushfire warning levels and actions, site evacuations and shelter in place, including roles and responsibilities. The bushfire management plan is 51 pages long and, in my opinion, a high-level document. I might also note that the Chief Fire Warden has 13 years' experience in managing the safety of festivals and before his time as a police officer. I might also note that the festival engages with the Queensland Police Service and the Queensland Ambulance Service on a user pay system, which provides police and paramedics for the events, ensuring it does not impact on local emergency capacity. I do believe that the unsealed roads should be for local traffic only, and if this event is approved, I believe it should be blocked off to general traffic. By having festivals like REL in our region, it gives people an opportunity to discover the Southern Downs. While festivals attendees are here, they have the opportunity to shop local and see our local sites. This encourages repeat tourism and will ultimately inject more money into our region. I will be voting in favour for this event and will be supporting the recommendation of the staff.
Thank you, councillor Dean, and I think that leaves us with councillor Bartley.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to thank the staff for putting the report together, as the other councillors have suggested, but also like to thank the councillors for putting so much time and effort into studying the reports in detail. This application was assessed against 9 codes. They're all mentioned there. There's one code missing, I reckon, and we should think about building one, a community needs code. Does the community need this? Does the community want this? In my opinion, no. It's resoundingly been echoed through Elbow Valley that there's major concerns. They've listed out the bushfire concerns, they've listed out the rural amenity concerns, they've listed the endangered species concerns, the road and traffic concerns. They've all been addressed here today by certain councillors. They've read there and interpreted what they believe would be the best or not so good use of those conditions. Then, Madam Mayor, you summed it up pretty right. It is rural amenity. You can condition the hell out of an application, but you can't guarantee you'll fix it. Conditions are to go towards addressing amenity impacts, and I'm afraid you just can't put enough conditions on board to address it, to retain the rural amenity that exists out there. If we listen to long-term residents, and a lot of them have got their names on the roads out there, they are not people who live in not my backyard. There's mining operations out there. They accept those without problem, and they do have impacts. Not as much impact as this, one would think, because we don't hear too many concerns about that. We've just got to understand we are represented by the people for the people. And in my opinion, this is not a remote area. We have now a significant number of people living in the area. No matter what you do, it will negatively impact on them, and no matter how many conditions you put in place. So I won't be supporting it for mostly all the reasons the other councillors have conveyed who are voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. And do you want to write a reply, Councillor Haslett?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks to all my colleagues for your contributions, and everyone's made really valid points. Mayor Melissa, you spoke about a couple of amendments that would make you more comfortable with this. I actually don't have a problem with those personally. I would be happy to consider those. I think seems to me there's three clear risks that keep coming out: noise, traffic and bushfire. And they were the three that I highlighted as well, so absolutely agree with that. You addressed two with your amendments, and that was noise and traffic, and I think that they were sensible suggestions. The restricting of noise at night after 10 p.m. and before 7 a.m. I'm sure the event organisers could come up with a way that if people want to listen to music through that time, they put on headphones or something. I'm sure there is a way that that can be done without there being ambient noise. So, and the traffic one, I agree. There's been a lot of comments around the problems of traffic going on the rest of the road. So I think that's a sensible one as well. With regards to bushfire, I think that you need to wait and see what the actual specific event management, risk management plan would be. We've got the conditions here that they must provide that, but we haven't actually yet seen it. So, Councillor Motley, you spoke about a few things there. The reason that's not in here is because that would be yet to be provided. I don't know that it's in this report, but I've certainly heard it spoken about that if there was a situation where this event or any event was scheduled to be held, where there was extreme fire danger, the event would automatically be cancelled. Now, I may be incorrect about that, but that might be a condition that people would be happy to consider in there too. So I would like to, I'm not sure how to do this, to put to the room some possible amendments.
Vote on that general amendment with the planning staff doing the work afterwards, or do we need to have the wording before we vote?
Something along the lines of two extra conditions, that there's no light between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And that unsealed roads are closed or are only accessible for residents to use.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yes, so
Mayor, just a question. Councillor Haslett referred to the fact that she considered the bushfire management plan for
the event-specific one.
The event-specific one,
Specific one, yeah. Yes, okay, so Councillor Haslett, I think you're moving an amendment to add a condition that there be no audible noise between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. and that unsealed roads are restricted for local traffic.
Yes, and Ange can correct me if that's not in there, but that if there is an extreme fire danger at the time that the festival is scheduled, that it must be cancelled or something to that effect.
So through you, Mayor Melissa, condition 10 outlines that currently it reads events that are not permitted to be undertaken on site where the site and surrounding areas are subject to an extreme or catastrophic fire danger rating as defined by the Australian Fire Danger Rating System.
Okay, so yeah, that doesn't need to be amended then.
Yep. Okay, so are we just voting on the amendment or on the motion?
I'm sorry,
Is the second?
Yeah,
I'm happy to move that amendments. I'm happy to amend it.
Councillor Dean's happy to be the seconder again. But that's, so they're voting on the amendment and then we go back to the amended motion.
If the amendment gets
If the amendment gets up, okay. So voting on that amendment, those in favour? Councillors Windle, Pidgeon, Hamilton, McDonald, Haslett and Dean, and those against Bartley and Wantling. So the recommendation is now amended to include those conditions. So we will now vote on the actual motion as to whether the application is approved subject to conditions. Those in favour? Haslett, Dean, Windle and Pidgeon, and those against? Wantling, Bartley, Hamilton and McDonald. Yep. And I use my casting vote to against the application. That motion fails. I think it's now 10:26. I'll move that we adjourn the meeting for morning tea. Those in favour? Okay, we're moving on to item 15.2. We have a recommendation that the application for reconfiguring a lot, subdivision of one lot into 9 lots on land at 2 Locke Street, Warwick, described as Lot 1 SB 204073, be approved, subject to conditions. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Windle. Do you want to speak to the motion, Councillor Richters? Okay, anyone?
I'd like to speak to the motion, and given that we've had previous development applications on this, I think it's a good development. I think it was the first proposed 3-storey buildings originally planned. It would have been pretty good, I believe. It would have been a suitable sort of area for a townhouse style dwelling, but as it was, it didn't go ahead, which was really unfortunate, I believe. But this one is going to make good use of well-located land within with close proximity to CBD, so I think it's a really good outcome for the community getting this development in place.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak to the motion?
I'll just add that, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this develop now. I think it's been long overdue. It's been fairly unsightly there on that corner, so it'll be a great improvement, and I think the additional car parks then on that eastern side, is it the eastern side of Halloran Street that they're going? The western side, sorry? No. Yeah, so that would be a great addition just there as well, so make up for the removal of those other car parks, so well done.
Thank you, and I might just note to staff in relation to some of those submissions, I presume you will respond and point out to them the conditions in the approval that address their concerns on that one.
Through you, Madam Melissa, the formal response that we send is the decision notice, which will include the conditions.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Going to a vote on that, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 15.3, we have a recommendation that the application for preliminary approval for material change of use, including variation request, to vary the effects of the Southern Downs Planning Scheme version 5, dual occupancy, 52 duplex dwellings on proposed lots 60 to 81, 96, 99 to 106, 108 to 113, 115 to 122, 124 to 128, and 130 to 131, on land at Homestead Road, Rosenthal Heights, described as Lot 100, SB 249599, be approved subject to conditions. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Bartley, thank you. Do you want to speak to your motion, Councillor Richters?
Mayor, I just want to acknowledge that I do understand the concerns of people who have submitted and opposed this development, or this change to the development. I understand their concerns. I guess I can sympathise with their feelings, but we cannot, on one hand, be asking our community to develop more housing, whilst on the other hand saying no to potential developments that specifically target our key issues. So I do have a question, if I could, during this, to probably the Manager of Planning about the proposed new planning scheme. Would it have included dual occupancy in the low density zone as it is written now?
Through you, Melissa, and Tony, please jump in. It does enable low density residential to be developed with dual occupancies, and it has a minimum lot size that is allowable for those dual occupancies. Is that correct?
Are we commenting? I guess it would be similar to what potentially is in the current planning scheme in terms of dual occupancy provision.
Okay, so I think this is inevitable. We'll see more of it in our region. We need more of it in the region for the sake of housing, and so I think that the staff could probably put the conditions on there that they could. I do have some concerns about parking, as I'm sure Councillor Windle will have as well. I would love for some suggestions to be made on how we could improve parking in that area, noting that other developments that have been like this that have in the past happened in our region have very clearly demonstrated that parking is a concern. If we can come up with some way of addressing that, I think we would have the golden ticket.
Thank you, councillor Richters. Councillor Watley?
Mayor, just acknowledging them submissions, is there a way that we can mitigate the community concerns on some of those things like your stormwater and landscaping that they've addressed? Is there a way, just like he said just then?
Yes, so councillor Watling, I think on the stormwater, which seems to come up in a lot of them, I think that if you look at page 167, and I'll ask the General Manager to speak to this, but Council are proposing to undertake significant stormwater drainage improvement works in the area, and that should improve the stormwater position for a lot of those submitters. I'll just ask the General Manager to confirm that the proposal doesn't actually change the stormwater impact.
And through you, Mayor, and thanks for the question, Councillor. I think we're putting a lot of time and effort into both the Gibson Road and also downstream in the subdivision below to improve the current situation. I've been out there several times, both during and after events. The team have as well. We've got a design project currently underway for this financial year to get it all shovel ready, and then we'll be putting in the for the budget bid for Council's consideration in the forthcoming capital year, which will actually address some of those drainage issues. There's also drainage provisions within the existing subdivisional approval as is that will also really heavily mitigate any downstream works as well. So that's already in the conditions. Yep. So the new proposed subdivision doesn't exacerbate that situation. So I'm comfortable with both the works of the developer and also the works of council. We can mitigate a lot of that drainage work. And this issue has been around for a very long time, so I'm really happy that we have addressed it and taking forward some plans for consideration by council.
Thank you.
Councillor Bartlett?
Stormwater studies are interesting, and we build plans, we try and work out which way the water's going to flow, but obviously it always happens at night times during intense storms and no one's watching it all unfold. And that's why our community seem to get into trouble, or inundation occurs, and it has occurred in that area, where water has gone through houses. And it's a stormwater issue. We're understaffed with our infrastructure, and we didn't probably, in times gone by, imagine the amount of development that would have occurred in that area. We've got 300 mil pipes, but they should be 1 metre pipes. And we've got to fund that somehow, whether we look for some funding opportunities, grant-wise or otherwise. But my main concern, if you go and study that area, I think we need to develop as we go along. The legal point of discharge, I don't think has been addressed properly. The legal point of discharge is Bracket Creek. That's where we've got to get our stormwater to. Putting it into an underutilised rural paddock is not a legal point of discharge, in my opinion. It should be piped all the way to the creek, because they are what takes the stormwater away eventually. If it makes its way all through private property, well, it's not really the right way to manage stormwater, because we create the problem by the storm development. Impervious surface, that's what we're creating, all these rooftops. And that increases flows, increases velocities, increases angst amongst the community every time there's a storm. Farewell Drive, I know they've been impacted considerably, and if we don't do something about stormwater there, and they'll attribute that to this development, no doubt about it. We have studied and said no, if we send it down Gibson Road, it's not going to be a problem. I hope that turns out to be right. I hope our officers have done a really good job on that, not really trusted in that.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. Councillor Windle?
Thanks, Mayor Melissa. I'm not going to add any more about the stormwater. I think that's been well and truly covered, and I totally agree. There's definitely issues there, and Councillor Richter's right. I do have concerns about parking, and I did raise that and ask the question at our information session. There's another estate in town already, similar to this, and there's already issues in that estate with the narrow streets and not enough parking for vehicles. Most of these residences will have 2 vehicles per residence, without a doubt. I can't say all of them will, but the majority will. So there's a single car garage for the duplex. The other car's going to have to park in the driveway in front of the garage or on the footpath. If they can't, you can't put 2 cars out in the street. There's not enough room for cars to drive along the street with vehicles parked on the street. So whilst I'm going to vote in favour of this, because we definitely do need the housing, I think that hopefully common sense will prevail with people that actually live there and do the right thing, park in the driveway in front of the garage. If you have to, try to stay off the footpath. It's illegal. I don't know whether the police enforce it too much, but it is illegal. We see it on the current affair all the time where people in the cities, there's nowhere for them to park other than the footpath and they get fined for doing so. I don't want to see that happen. So I think in the future we have to be mindful of the street area. A wider street in place, or that there's adequate parking for extra vehicles in these developments, because it is a big concern and an issue. I don't know how we can overcome it this time.
Anyone else want to? Councillor Dean?
Would like to echo WILLI Councillor's thoughts on new extra development in the area. I think it's really important to continue to supply extra housing as we have the industry in the area that really needs work and has no way of housing. So I think it's really important that these sites go ahead, but also be really mindful of the conditions that we have and get the stormwater sorted and the parking.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Yes, and I would just say, I think you're right, Councillor Windle. This is an existing application, so we couldn't do anything about the road sizes. But I think it's a lesson to us all going forward that while we definitely want more housing, Councillor Richters is right, we need more affordable housing. But with new applications, we'd certainly be looking at making sure that the roads were of sufficient width. Going to a vote on that, all in... sorry.
Yeah, I think I have 2 things. I think that the parking does need to be addressed. And if the only option left to us is to do enforcement action, then I think that's something that we should consider down the track about fining people for parking on our curbs and on our footpaths. I don't think that is a great solution, but if that's the only solution that we're left with in order to try and alleviate problems, I think that's all we really have. My last comment is that the owners along Gibson Road at Christmas time have an amazing Christmas displays, and I hope that when they have new neighbours across the road, they'll all gather together and make one extra large Christmas tree on Gibson Street.
Councillor McDonald, we just had the right of reply. I'm sorry if I missed you, but I thought when I went around it was only Councillor Richters. I think we'll just go to a vote. Okay, thank you. All in favour? Is that unanimous? Yes, unanimous, thank you. Item 15.4, we have a recommendation that Council, following the tender assessment, enter into a contract with Hazel Brothers Queensland Pty Ltd for the Warwick Landfill Cell 4 for an amount of $4,809,874 exclusive of GST, and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into any variations to the contract as deemed necessary for the duration of the contract. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Dean, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Pigeon. Does anyone want to speak for or to the motion? No? All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. And item 15.5, a recommendation that Council, following the tender assessment, enter into a contract with B4 Industries Pty Ltd for the Stanthorpe landfill capping. I'll herald an amendment here. It should read for an amount of $2,844,050 exclusive of GST, and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into any variations to the contract as deemed necessary for the duration of the contract. Is someone happy to move that amendment? Councillor Dean, thank you. And Councillor Haslett, yes, shall we just, that's to correct that error. Are we all happy just to vote on changing that amount? All in favour? Yes, okay, unanimous. Now, going back to the motion itself as amended, do I have a mover for that? Councillor Dean, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Haslett. Does anyone want to speak to the motion?
Just to say that this is a couple of examples now, the previous agenda item plus this one is a great example of money that is necessary to spend and money that has to be found by this council, which is difficult, so well done to the team, so we look forward to seeing this progress.
Thank you. Okay, shall we go to a vote on that one? All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. We have no deputations, and now we're moving to our confidential business item. So, in accordance with provisions of section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, a local government may resolve to close the meeting to the public and move into committee to discuss confidential items such that its councillors or members consider it necessary to close the meeting, and a recommendation that the meeting be closed to the public and that we move into committee to discuss the following items which are considered confidential in accordance with section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to the following item 17.1. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wendell, thank you. And a second, Councillor Pigeon. Shall we move to go into confidential? Thank you. We have a recommendation that Council under Section 125 of the Planning Act 2016 refuse the applicant's representations and refuse the request for fees to be waived regarding a further application in relation to the approved development MCU 0190702 located at 143 Old Stanthorpe Road, Morgan Park, described as Lot 2, SP 818435. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Hassett, and a seconder? Councillor Dean, thank you. All in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Okay, I don't believe we have any general business today, is that correct? Yep, okay. In which case, I think we can adjourn our meeting at 11:10 a.m. All in favour? Thank you.